Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to talk to you today about mountains. Specifically, we'll start with pictures here of the mountains. Do you see any particular hazards in this photo? I don't see any hazards at all, just snow-capped mountains and a couple of clouds, right? How about this photo here? Anything at all? Again, just snow-capped mountains with clear skies in this case. Any hazards, any dangers? That's exactly my point. There are no dangers visible. However, there are dangers present, and that's exactly what I'm here to talk to you today about. I'm here to inform you about dangers above 8,000 feet, specifically as they relate to medical conditions and things that can occur that are unique to mountainous terrains or any area that has sea levels above 8,000 feet. First, I'll start with several of the different problems that you might encounter, and then towards the end of the speech we'll talk about preventative techniques. First of all, we'll talk about altitude motion, acute mountain sickness, or AMS. Dr. S.J. McMurray, author of High Altitude Medicine for Family Physicians, noted that nearly 25% of all individuals that go above 8,000 feet, regardless of who they are or where they are, will encounter some form of altitude illness. And acute mountain sickness is the first and least severe of all those illnesses. Acute mountain sickness, the symptoms that you might encounter are nausea, vomiting, headache. You might experience some dizziness with this type of condition, but again, it's not as severe as some of the other conditions. The International Society for Mountain Medicine defines the next condition as high altitude pulmonary edema. Now, high altitude pulmonary edema is a little more serious. When that occurs, basically you're oxygen deficient, or you get what they call hypoxia because of the altitude itself. What occurs is the blood vessels within the lungs actually tighten to increase blood flow to the organs, and they can actually burst, causing fluid to build up in the lungs. And usually when you have this occur, you'll become feverish, you might have a cough, you'll be less inclined to exercise, you'll have a lower tolerance for exercising in general. And what you need to really watch for is a cough with pink sputum or mucus when you cough. If you have that kind of condition, you are experiencing more severe symptoms of high altitude pulmonary edema, and you need to seek medical attention. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The third and last and most severe of the three things that you can get above 8,000 feet is high altitude cerebral edema. And just as it sounds, cerebral, we're talking about the brain. And the most, what you normally get with that is, as those same vessels, you have vessels in your brain that also constrict like in your lungs above 8,000 feet. They're forcing themselves tighter and tighter to continue blood flow to the major organs, and the brain, being a major organ, of course needs that blood flow as well. When that occurs, though, you still have the popping of individual small blood vessels, which leads to leaking of fluid into the brain and increases pressure on the brain, causing swelling. Some of the symptoms that you might encounter with that are headache, behavioral changes, hallucinations, convulsions, semi-consciousness, which can even progress to coma and then further on to death. So why does all this happen? According to the doctors with the APEX group, which is the Altitude Physiological Expeditions with the website altitude.org, oxygen levels in the lower atmosphere consistently are 21%. Actually, the entire atmosphere is made up of 21% oxygen. The difference at sea level is the oxygen is compressed by the atmosphere above. Being more compressed, there's more available molecules within that airspace. At 8,000 feet, you have less weight above you, less atmosphere above, pushing down on those same particles. There's still a 21% concentration of oxygen at that level. However, you only get a few particles per area, so to speak, because of the less compressed air at that altitude. Some of the prevention things that you can do, and this is very easy. When you go up to the mountains and things like that, if you experience any kind of conditions, the most simple thing you can do, reduce your altitude. go down a couple thousand feet. In general, they say if you reduce your altitude by 2,000 feet, symptoms generally will clear up within a matter of hours. If you're feeling okay, then you can in general continue on, go back to the altitude you were at. Just monitor yourself. If you do develop conditions consistent with high altitude cerebral or pulmonary edema, those are more serious. You still need to get yourself down a couple thousand feet in altitude, but you need to seek medical attention at that time as well, just to make sure that you're going to be okay. In general, normally you will be okay. However, if you let symptoms continue on and progress worse at higher altitudes, you run the risk of further damage and possible death if you don't seek medical attention quickly. They also say sometimes getting down 300 meters or about 900 feet has shown significant improvement in people within 30 minutes of getting to that lower altitude. So in general, you'll be okay if you can get down below 8,000 feet, usually by about 2,000 feet. So you in general want to go down to about 5,000 to 6,000 feet. So what we've talked about here is acute mountain sickness, high altitude pulmonary edema, and high altitude cerebral edema, and the fact that you can get down to lower altitudes in order to clear things up and get well. I hope that this information will help you in your next plan for your vacation, whether you're going to Colorado in the mountains or overseas to the Alps or any other high altitude location. Please keep this information in mind. It's critical. It applies to everyone in your family. Thank you very much.